Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody who's on here. And I'm welcoming people from all over the world on this Ask the Experts webinar. I am super excited again to have such a great crew or team of people here to answer some questions. So again, do feel free to answer questions. We're going to talk about cash and collection managements for high volume usage. And why we're talking about that, well, we'll get to that in a moment. But I want to welcome my panel. First, I want to welcome Haresh Chaya from SAP, who is the leader for Treasury in North America, a deep expert in all aspects and areas of Treasury, and has been kind enough to join us today. Haresh, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Also on the phone, we have Gilles Guillemard, who is one of our senior project managers and a Treasury expert, been involved in several projects. So Gilles, welcome.
Thanks, John, and hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
And finally, certainly and not last, but certainly most definitely not least, we have the guy I like to call the professor, Michael Schwartzman. And Michael has tremendous, deep experience in Treasury for, like me, he's been doing this a long time, 20 some odd plus years. If there are some things about Treasury that you don't know, then Michael probably knows them. Michael, welcome. And Michael might be on mute. All right, Michael's on mute. We'll get to him in a moment. All right, so just a couple quick housekeeping items. Just remind everybody, we are recording this. Feel free, this is Ask the Experts. So for all of you out there who are new to this, and my friends who have been doing this for a long time, please ask your questions, feel free, we're here for you. We have some questions that were submitted ahead of time, but we will take the time to answer yours. Check out our other webinars. You can get to those via bramasol.com, YouTube, subscribe to our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, or checked out our different groups in LinkedIn, etc. So let's dive right into the subject matter in our panel discussion. The reason we're here, frankly, is because the world is changing. And when I say the world is changing, the nature of business and the business models out there are changing. We call this the digital solutions economy. And it's much more than just subscriptions. It's really a customer-driven model that enables customers to be in control of everything from customer engagement through creation of solutions, all the way through things like billing, invoicing, payments, and collections. And what's important to understand about that and the framework for this is it drives a new model. It's all about subscriptions. It's all about anything as a service. Many companies, including SAP and others, are involved in these models, but they have some certain uniquenesses and implications and changes, and that's what we're sort of here to discuss today. So in terms of powering the end-to-end quote-to-cash process, SAP is strongly positioned to do that. Yesterday, you would have heard us talk a lot about the front end of this and talk about how there are changes to the way SAP helps manage all of those. Today, we're going to focus over here in the back end. So it's great if you have a customer who comes in and sets up a solution, designs their own solution, creates a usage model, a consumption model, but how do you handle payments? How do you handle credit? And so today we're going to talk a bit about all of that. So what I want to dive into in the beginning here is I'll go backwards here for a second. Haresh, SAP has done a lot in terms of enabling this XASS and the importance of cash collections, and cash management. Maybe you can give us a quick overview of some of the things that SAP is doing in that space.
Sure, John. So essentially, if you look back several quarters, probably starting 2018, you'll see a consistent pattern in which SAP has invested in our receivables management solutions, our payment solutions, and so on. And all of these have been done with an intent to strengthen customers' full quote-to-cash process. especially, if you talk about payments, if you talk about collections and so on, they sit at sort of a tail end of the quote to cash process, but nonetheless, they are extremely important to get the revenue in and increase and improve liquidity situation, which ultimately adds to the working capital optimization initiatives as well. So there has been a lot of investments. I would cite a few examples. Receivables management is one. Obviously, digital payments add-on adds a capability to transact with the customers through credit cards and so on. We have advanced payment management, which essentially rounds up all the payments from across the company and centralizes them to be sent to the banks for execution. So there's a whole bunch of things that connect the whole quote to cash process ultimately to the revenue stream and the liquidity. And we have made huge strides in that area.
Yeah, I know, and we see more and more customers, and it's so important that customers realize and our clients realize that, it just doesn't stop with sending out a bill. Of course, you have to collect that, and connecting all of those dots is one way that SAP empowers that economy. Gilles, as we move to the next slide, one of the questions, and maybe you can talk a little bit about one of these big issues, which is cash application. Can you describe from your perspective the cash application challenges related to what we call this digital subscription economy?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, John. Yes, and clearly this is a big topic, right? There are loads of cash application challenges related to the subscription or digital economy. So we could probably spend the next hour just talking about that. So here, for the format of this session, I just want to call out, the 3 or 4 key challenges that I think are relevant for this discussion here. And one of the first challenges that I want to call out here is the fact that pricing and monetization of the models from the traditional economy are typically too rigid for the digital economy. If you think about that, traditionally pricing has been performed on per unit basis with discounts, perhaps based on volume. But in the digital economy, pricing models are a lot more complex, right? Lots of time, these pricing models are set up in a way that customer gets a defined usage quantity for a recurring monthly fee based on tier pricing. And in some cases, there are discounts that are applied based on the usage of a different product. And that makes the pricing a lot more complex. And it means that in turn, the revenue cycle is much more complex, and therefore the cash application is much more complex. So that's one challenge that I see. Another big challenge that I see is the fact that this usage-based business model that I've just described, typically leads to having to deal with very large amount of transactional data, right? So if you think about a music streaming service where the billing is based on usage according to a tier pricing model, well, they're going to have to track the number of songs that each of their users stream during the billing cycles, right? And clearly users listen to many songs every day, and if you multiply that by the number of users using the service, that's a lot of data, and it's a lot of data that needs to be collected, but also stored, processed, and even archived. And clearly that leads to loads of technical challenges and business challenges, and again, that means a more complex revenue cycle and a more complex cash application.
Got it. Absolutely.
But then you have another challenge related to the management of customer contracts. And in the digital economy, these contracts are, again, based on subscription and usage. And, they are likely to change quite often, depending on the customer changing needs. Personally, to come back to that example of the music streaming service, I'm personally subscribed to one such service. And, I change very often. Last month, I wanted to have unlimited package and limited songs to listen to. And this month I've decided that, I don't really need it as much, and I'm moving to a more basic package. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So that means that the terms of the contract, clearly are likely to change with sometimes add-ons, sometimes removal, and perhaps changing the service location and things of that nature. And so to be able to manage all of these changes and to track all the different versions is very challenging. And clearly, the ever-changing nature of these contracts makes the cash application for the receipts related to this contract a lot more complex.
So in the high volume space, we know, we have some options, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We'll differentiate between some of the challenges of Cash App between FICA, FICA, contract accounting, and FIAR. But Michael, maybe you can share with us how does cash application work, if you will, in this FICA, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, I just wanted to first thank you, John, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar as a panelist. I'd like to mention that FICA is basically a cross-application industry-specific sub-ledger accounting system. And that system is used, employed in a number of industries, including some of the conventional industries, such as insurance, banking, for consumer loans, utilities, telecom, and clearly the new industries like fintechs and streaming services and consumption-based services. What's common between them all is that they have a huge number of billing items, of open billing items. And this huge number of open billing items need to be cleared against the cash that they receive. So it becomes a challenge to, it historically has been a challenge to do that. But now SAP has developed a new service that is a service based on their new technology. That is a cash application that is run in the cloud, right? And it allows to substantially increase the STPs, the straight-through processing portion for application of cash. And that particular service is absolutely amazing. Not only that particular service allows you to connect to every possible S/4HANA system, it allows to integrate with the existing cash clearing applications for the FICA, right? And improve on that through machine learning, through artificial intelligence. And that is something that I find to be very useful, very amazing. You could just imagine, for example, if you have, for example, a daily 20,000 billing items, open billing items that you need to clear, and even a 0.5% that you cannot clear becomes a very substantial, will have a very substantial impact on the people that do cash apps in your receivables group. You could appreciate how tedious this process is, and if there is a artificial intelligence, machine learning involved and eliminates this manual effort altogether, then becomes an enormous benefit to such companies. So some of the things that I really wanted to point out about this new service is that it is running on the so-called SAP Business Technology Platform that basically unites and automates the processing. It can be connected, as I mentioned, to the almost any S/4HANA system, and it's cloud-based architecture, and it allows really a scalability of the relationship of what you're trying to process against the growth in your company. So it is something that I think is of extreme benefit to the clients.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Gilles, we're talking about FICA, which Michael very nicely pointed out is a sub-ledger in SAP, really designed initially, of course, to support the insurance and banking industry with the high volumes of transactions, high volumes of invoicing, et cetera. What are the differences here? Because we think of FICA, FIAR. What are the differences here in terms of Cash App between the two?
Right. So before I talk about the specific differences in terms of cash application, between the two solutions. I just want to high level talk about the differences between the two solutions themselves, just to level set. So in terms of like FICA, clearly, and I think we've mentioned that before, but it's typically used for high volume of open items for business to customer relationship, right? I need to say here that yes, FICA can also handle complex B2B scenario, but I think it's been primarily designed and developed for business to customer relationship. While on the other hand, FIR is more classically used for low business to business volume. So that's a key difference. But also in terms of like the products that they cover, these products are quite different, right? Typically, FIR handles physical goods or perhaps logistic processes, while FICA deals more with digital goods based on subscription and usage, and these goods are typically coming from connected devices. So with this in mind, I think in terms of like cash application differences, I would say, first in terms of matching between sales order and receipt from customers, that FIR is very much based on line item matching. While for FICA, we're talking about like matching for business partners or contract accounts, knowing again that one customer can have multiple contracts, right? Then in terms of volume, again, FIR is more suited to low volume of open items, while FICA is really designed to handle high volume of open items. FIR is business to business, and FICA is much more business to customer. And then, as you've mentioned, in terms of like the sectors, FIR is more suited to for companies in the traditional sectors such as manufacturing, oil and gas, and agriculture, etc. While FICA has been designed for companies active in insurances or utilities or telecommunication or media. And then I'll just add that, again, in terms of like the matching process, FIR, typically relies on a strong integration with finance, SAP Finance, while FICA, it's all about that, cash application cloud service that Michael was describing, which is part of that larger and more complex order to cash processes, including subscription order management.
Okay. Well, thank you. And one of the reasons we're actually here, and you said something, and I'm going to I don't know that I'll necessarily disagree, but I'm going to take it to the next level. Traditionally, and I think the word I want to use, traditionally, you're absolutely right on FICA, designed for those kinds of businesses, and we see it in streaming services, whether it's with companies like, some of our customers like Apple and Discovery and Nielsen, many others like that. Whereas FIAR might have been more traditional for our manufacturing companies, clients like Borg Warner or HPE or others like that. However, the reason we're here is because we're seeing such an evolution in the world today of selling some of these products and services as a bundle, selling them as solutions, outcome-based models. So, we're seeing more of that evolution towards those. Michael, and I'm going to ask Haresh to comment here in a moment. What I'll ask you to Haresh to think about, or what I'd like your comment on when Michael's talked about the technical nature, is SAP has invested a lot on the machine learning side, and there are so many great applications also from the cloud, but machine learning that work with treasury, that work with cash and cash management. Maybe in a moment you can comment on that, and I'll give you a moment to prep. Michael, how does this, we talked about machine learning, but how does machine learning work with FICA? I mean, the volumes are huge, but that's a benefit, right?
That's correct, John. And what this particular Cash App that I was mentioning, the SAP Cash App that is cloud-based, it is an add-on to FICA to begin with. So it does not negate the cash clearing services or processes that have been already designed and exist. It is an add-on. It means that it provides some additional stuff. So if you've achieved a certain level of clearing in your open item processing, then this additional SAP Cash App actually extends this to almost virtually like 100%. It is that amazing. It works on the three basic pillars. There are three basic pillars for the machine learning in general, and for the SAP Cash App in particular. And those are the model, the training data, and the training process itself. The model is basically kind of like one can think of the algorithm that learns the patterns and then applies them for whatever that application is. In our particular case, we're talking about the clearing of open items, right? The training data is a subset, or a set of data that is historical in nature, consists of the perhaps some accounting documents, and there are probably at minimum a requirement of 10,000 historical accounting documents per country to do this kind of clearing, because clearly the Cash App is country related in many respects. And and on top of this training process is self-taught. Once you identify the training data, and you use you have the model in essence build itself through the training process.
Got it.
So not only it's something that you could intervene with and provide a certain input, but it actually learns itself. So in essence, that is true artificial intelligence. Some of the documents that may be required for this are the bank statements, or the lockbox files, or perhaps some other payment files that they used, or perhaps the files that you use in integration with fintechs or the credit card companies and so forth. And then you have your open item receivables in your FICA, right? And then the clearing that has happened in FICA. So all of these constitute the subset of the training data. Okay. So this is how overall it kind of fits, but then you need to run that model to learn it, and then once you move it in production, it will be executed. You would also be able to rerun it on a periodic basis for it to learn and adapt to new changes. Great. So that's how it works together with FICA. It actually makes a possibility that not only the rule-based system that have been established in the FICA and have been used by the clients in S4, for example, can be still reused, but in addition to that, it is the machine learning that brings it to almost 100% SDP rate.
Fantastic. So Haresh, I'm going to ask you to take us home. I know we had a couple more questions out there, but we won't have time to get to them. But Haresh, I'd like you to bring us home, as it were. SAP has invested tremendously, particularly in this space of treasury cash management, in machine learning, artificial intelligence. What other tools are available for customers these days?
So I think the earlier description was very articulate and pretty detailed. So I'm going to touch on some of the new things that you'll be seeing in Sapphire, which is in 2 weeks from now. We're going to be demonstrating how our predictive liquidity functionality is going to integrate with our broader cash and liquidity management and working capital management solutions. Essentially, it uses an underlying technology which was very well described earlier, we know as machine learning. So you can teach the cash management solution what has been the trend, how to read that trend, and how to interpret it, so that you can project out what could happen in the future, and how you can leverage that information. Many companies claim that they have some prediction capabilities, but well, if you are able to predict but not be able to do anything with information, then it's only half-baked solution. What we are going to be showing is you can do the prediction and embed the prediction back into running your businesses better, and that's exactly where we are headed. You'll see some flavors of that in Sapphire in 2 weeks as well.
Great. That sounds really exciting. We just went through something like that with one of our prospective clients. Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, unfortunately, I could spend, as you all guys know, I love this topic and I could spend a lot more time, but we're at the bottom of the hour. So I want to thank you again, Haresh, Michael, Gilles, for taking time out of your day to really focus in on this great topic. Thank you, audience, for your questions, for attending. We continue to run these sessions, and absolutely, I recommend that you check out Sapphire. It's both virtual as well as in person. For those of you going in person, check it out. I think I've seen Haresh's presentations. He's fantastic. Again, thank you, Haresh, for joining us, and Michael and Gilles, and everybody, make it a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.